Good evening, everyone. Dave Field, Director of Public Works. I'll try to go quick because I know we're running a little late on time, but DPW is made up of 40 full-time equivalents across 4 divisions: administration, highway, buildings, grounds, and water. Just, everyone knows what police and fire do, and Kristen did a great job telling about health and community services, but not everyone knows exactly what DPW does, so I'm just going to take a couple seconds and go through it. We are responsible for road maintenance, 117 miles of public roads, 1 million miles of line striping, 260 miles of roadside to mow. We supply 605 million gallons of water. That was in calendar year 23. 92,000 meter reads and send out 32,000 water bills. We handle snow and ice for 17 million square feet of pavement. We maintain all the buildings in town, including schools, 794,000 square feet of building space. We completed over 1,000 work orders in 2023. We handle grounds maintenance for all property in town, including the schools, 42 acres of sports fields, 176 acres of general mowing, 9 playgrounds, the turf field, 29 cemeteries. A significant amount of time on grounds maintenance. We handle trees. We have a forestry department that did about 389 trees in 2023 and trimmed another 197. Now we handle almost all town vehicles except for fire, because their mechanic is on staff, but 136 town vehicles are managed by DPW, including police. We handle the geographic information system for the whole town. This includes the assessor's database, all the mapping. We had 32,000 user sessions last year. We handle the sewer. North Easton Village, Queesit in 5 Corners, collected over 26 million gallons of sewage in 2023. Maintain the North Easton Village wastewater treatment plant, 4 pump stations, a siphon, odor control station, permitting for people wanting to connect, the inspections of those connections, TV inspection of the internal sewer lines, which is required, and cleaning. We handle stormwater. We have over 5,000 drainage structures, 390,000 linear feet of drain lines. We handle our stormwater permit compliance. We clean a lot of catch basins, inspect a lot of outfalls and culverts. We also handle the solid waste and recycling and administration. We have 4,700 subscribers. This is our #1 call to DPW. We handle all the billing, and we also handle all the barrel drops, new services, repairs, things like that. It takes up a lot of time for our staff. We own our own streetlights and maintain them. We save a significant amount of money by doing this. Last year we maintained 50 streetlights, but we also have to transfer streetlights. So every time there's a new pole, and there's been a lot of new poles lately, any time there's a streetlight on that pole, we have to transfer it over. And people like to hit poles all the time. Our partners at Police and Fire know that. So there's a lot of poles being replaced constantly. We also handle engineering project management. We perform site plan and subdivision review. We do in-house design, permitting, survey, and layout for various projects. I'll go through some of those a little later. But we're managing $185 million in current and future capital projects through DPW administration. Those are things like the Depot Street Corridor Improvement Project, which was just completed last year. The Elm Street TIP project, which is ongoing right now, hopefully out to bid soon. The Foundry Street project, which is just in design. Construction of our water treatment plants, our water main replacement projects, our PFAS treatment plants, and then the building project, which we're currently working on for the public safety complex. So just some examples of some of the special projects that we do in-house. This was a school field expansion where we took a small practice field, removed about 13,000 cubic feet of material, and made a nice new expanded multi-purpose field. Town hall drainage improvements. There was a failed system here, so we designed it and built it in-house. Handled the town hall exterior renovations and restoration. Needed to design a new septic system, so we did that in-house, built it in-house. We designed and administered the construction of the OA Court reconstruction project, from design to our finished product, which was, a great product. Handled, like I said, the Red Mill Road water treatment plant. Our PFAS treatment plants. There's the Depot Street reconstruction, where we put up a new signal at Center Street and moved the monument. And then smaller projects like the entryway to the town clerk's office, completely did that in-house, modified those things, worked with fire to build them some new bunk rooms. And there's a shot of the proposed public works facility that will be in the public works complex. So again, that's taking a tremendous amount of time for our project management ability. Then we do miscellaneous things, like we operate our landfill. So there's an active gas collection and flare system there that we're required to monitor, air, groundwater, and surface water monitoring. We administer grant programs like our Green Communities grant programs, other competitive grant programs like Safe Routes to School or Complete Streets, small bridge program grants. We were successful in getting almost $500,000 for South Street, and we're working on currently the design on repairs to the Main Street culvert. We handle bridge and culvert inspections with our partners at Mass DOT. We perform traffic evaluations and traffic safety evaluations, design and recommend improvements. And then we handle health and safety issues at our facilities, employee training, and DLS and OSHA compliance. It takes a lot of training to stay up on all that. And there's more miscellaneous things like Arbor Day plantings, Household Hazardous Waste Day, voting setups, graduation. If there is not a town department that actually has that duty in their name, it usually falls into DPW. And probably our most important role is as a first responder, working with our partners at police and fire. We do have a lot of emergencies that do come up. Just last year, we had a large sinkhole on Bay Road, opened up due to a failed drain line, and then we had a tornado in 2023 in July. So those seem to happen on a kind of a routine basis. We've had a lot of those issues, and we continue to. So that's just a little overview of what DPW does, just to give you an idea. So looking at the budget, as Connor mentioned before, our overall budget is about $12.5 million. Most of that is enterprise funds, with a small portion of that being the general fund. So you can see 31% of our budget is out of the general fund. And I can break that down further. So out of the general fund, 64% of our department is payroll. That's a lot less than some of our partners. We do have some expenses. We have about 23% of that, or 900,000 is expenses, and then snow and ice is almost 500,000. But when you look at where those expenses are, there's not a lot of discretionary funds here. Our biggest expense is utilities. DPW handles the utilities for DPW, for Town Hall, for all parks. We handle the electricity, water, all that stuff for all the town facilities other than like police and fire or COA. Repair and maintenance of our vehicles. It's a huge budget item. We have to keep these vehicles moving. Our next biggest is signs, striping, and signals. Almost $88,000. That budget keeps going up. Our striping budget keeps going up. The cost of materials is escalating rapidly. Used to cost about $30,000 to stripe the town. Now we're up to about $70,000, so it's very expensive. And then we go down, vehicle, gas, and oil, highway materials. Highway materials are things like catch basins, pipe, stone, where we do some repairs, isolated small repairs. The landfill monitoring, that's set. We can't do anything about that. We have to do that. And then we get to smaller items, but even like telephone and communications, we pay for a good portion of the town's communications out of our budget. Cleaning, custodial, we handle the cleaning at Town Hall. Even office equipment and supplies, we handle the copier supplies and copier maintenance for Town Hall and DPW, things like that. So we do have a pretty big expense budget compared to some of our partners, but a lot of those are spoken for with just costs that we have to spend.
Dave, could you do me a huge favor and just go back one slide? I just want to make sure everybody understands that what we mean when we say what an enterprise budget is. Does everybody fully grasp that? Or is it worth it for us to take just a minute or two to talk about what that is and why we treat it separately?
Yeah, you want to?
I'm going to say I don't.
Okay.
Fair. Cool. So thank you, Tom.
It's a good question.
So when a lot of what we focus on, a lot of the biggest departments, the needs people are usually focusing on at town meeting, programs, positions relating to schools, public safety, those are funded through the general fund. The general fund is your property taxes, your state revenue, your meals tax, ambulance receipts, that type of thing. So that, to the extent DPW is funded by property taxes and things like that, they get $3.84 million right now per year. That represents 31% of the financial responsibilities annually of Dave.
Go
and
back
his
one more
departments.
slide too to highlight. So
Enterprise fund accounts, which is the majority, I think 69% of the financial responsibility of DPW, those are accounts specifically water, sewer, trash, and recycling that are public services, but under state law, we are able to fund them through a user fee. So that's not something that's just paid for out of your property taxes. So you pay for trash through your quarterly bill, water through your quarterly bill, sewer if you're in the sewer district through your quarterly bill. So over time, in our shared tenure, Dave and I both started in 2012, Public Works, the enterprise budgets that DPW is responsible for have grown substantially. When you think about something like PFAS plants, right, an unfunded mandate, we have to build those plants. We have to fund the debt service associated with those plants out of that water account. And then the select board, who are also the water commission and also the sewer commission and also the rent control board for the mobile home park, have to set rates. Unlike Prop 2.5, which is doesn't matter what inflation is, 2.5, enterprise accounts, they're called business-based accounts because you can actually do a long-term cost analysis of your staff and your obligations and then set a rate to meet it. So they have a cost impact on the cost of living in town, but they don't have a direct impact as far as whether or not the operating budget is strained or not.
And there aren't caps necessarily. Like, how are those rates decided?
So you usually do what's called a rate study. And
Okay.
so you would work with Public Works, accounting, and engineering firms to come in and they do rate modeling based on comparative analysis. And they'll show you, okay, for a community this size with this many customers with this type of flow, here are the different types of models. You could do escalating rate structures like in Easton. I think the larger service you have, the higher per gallon cost.
incline block rate, yeah.
Yes, incline block rate. And you look at those figures and then you make a business decision on what's needed. In Easton, our water, even with the rate increases we've had to do, that enterprise account used to be, I think, $2 million and change per year. It's at $5 million now. It is going to continue to grow to meet the debt service associated with PFAS, associated with building Red Mill Road, associated with the water division portion of the building project. Even with those increases, Easton's water is comparatively, I hate using the word cheap, but it is very affordable, right, compared to Foxborough and other communities. Our sewer rate is expensive because we do not have, whereas we have a water enterprise account that serves the supermajority of the town, we had no sewer until 2013 and 14, and so we have very comparatively small sewer districts that are excluding the one in Five Corners that ties into a regional plant. They are very economically inefficient. So those have higher use rates.
Has there ever been a time when Easton said, we need more money here, let's hike up the water bill? Is that a thing? Or
Yeah,
Yes, we do it. So I mean, not like as a surprise.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
It has to go to the water usage, though.
Yeah.
Like the two have to
like
be
it
tied.
has to fund?
Yep.
You can't, yes.
Right.
That's right. Yes. We can't. Thank you for pointing out. That's part of what we do. We do financial audits every year. We have an outside auditor audit our books, and that's part of it. They make sure there's a very limited siloed category of what are called indirect enterprise fees, where okay, you're administering the waste management program, but that is a huge amount of phone calls for your staff. So you could offset a small amount of the general fund liability to your enterprise fund, but we can't look at our financial position and say our water is comparatively cost effective. Our property tax may not be, so we're going to raise water and move that money over here. That's
But you can say, we're going to raise water to pay for PFAS plants
correct.
and all that, yeah.
Yes, whereas with other unfunded mandates that schools have talked about, police, fire have talked about, Dave has talked about, that hit your operations, we can't just say, oh, we got a mandate, so taxes go up above 2.5.
Yeah.
and it still needs resident approval for the residents still can stay engaged in terms of how much we charge for the water, whether it's via participation in the select board meeting when rates are being set, or we made the vote to acquire PFAS treatment facilities at town meeting.
I see.
Right.
We still maintain that. So to me, the water expense would grow commensurate largely with what the demands are that we as residents place on it, largely. The one other thing I'll point out, only because I remember it, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I believe that the water capital equipment is on average a younger age than the rest of the equipment. So where I'm going with it, Jocelyn, is where you have the flexibility or the understanding to have more of a, I guess I'll use the word business or enterprise account model, you largely have, well, I'm not saying they're brand new vehicles every year, I'm not saying that at all, but they are younger, which leads to less R&M, whereby on the general fund side, where we just have to use the normal capital allocation process, those vehicles on average last longer. Is that still
and that's a great point. So I'll just talk to what
Please.
Tom said. Basically, we have a ideal age for our vehicles. On the water side, we can meet that ideal age because we have the ability to do that. And when we do, our vehicle maintenance cost is very consistent. On the DPW side, we are part of the general fund, and we don't usually get what we need. You know, we all need things, and we're constrained. So we should be spending about $795,000 a year on vehicles. We usually get about half of that. And it's great that we get what we get, but then when you look at the repair and maintenance costs on the DPW side versus the water side, and these are the same vehicles and the same people working on them. So it's not like we have different people. We spend double what we do on the water is what we're spending on the DPW side, the operation side, the general fund side. So it just goes to show you, if you replace your assets and keep them appropriately aged, it's cheaper to run than waiting too long. You know, the misnomer is that if you defer replacement, you'll save money. It goes the other way. You actually spend more money. So that was a good point. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I'll bring that full circle now. Well, when we talk about our operating budgets and we talk about the revenue that we're going and the expenses and how at the end of the year, it's ideal to have a certain amount of free cash that enables you to participate more in a capital manner. When you start eating into that free cash, you start to see the beginning of I guess I'll call it a negative flywheel of, now things are getting older. Now things are costing more. Now I don't have more free cash. Now it's costing me more because things are getting older. And there's just a lot of interplay. And I believe the general fund is a great way to contrast the way there are different thought processes around our assets and how that has operating expense impact downstream.
Thank you.
Sure.
And sorry, just not to make this longer, but Tom had a really important point. The rates are discussed publicly, voted publicly, and they are attributable back to budgets that are passed at town meeting, and any capital still has to go through a town meeting appropriation process. So it's not as if we say, oh good, you know, business-based account, this is what we need done. There's still that accountability and direct transparency for folks.
All right, so going to budget considerations. So we continue to work with fewer bodies than are recommended, basically on any metric you can look at. We do need additional money. The town needs additional money for buildings, roads, and our fleet. Just like we talked about, deferring replacement actually costs you more money. It doesn't save you anything. And a big issue we've seen is inflation and material costs have really impacted our budgets. So looking at some staffing metrics. So for building maintenance, you should have a building maintenance technician. These are skilled trades people, carpenters, electricians, HVAC people, not cleaning or custodians, but those skilled trades. We should have 17 for our total building inventory. We have 6, and one of the, we really have 5. Budgeted for 6. We have a position that we just can't fill for what we're offering out there. On the vehicle maintenance side,
Dave, you lost over that quick when you're saying what we're offering. You're talking about we are not competitive with the market with skilled trades. And
true. There's a trade we have for building automation tech. We just can't find someone to take the job.
That's right. But I think that's really important to highlight because invariably when so much of our budgets are salary folks may come back and say, well, maybe you're paying people too much, right? And when you have fewer people, it's really important you're retaining good people because they're wearing multiple hats. But even with that, we have certain positions that, depending on where the private sector is, I mean, it took years for us to fill a plumber.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Because it is just that is a real, even with public health, with the healthcare package that comes with a public sector job, with a defined benefits retirement, which is incredible. It took us years to be able to get somebody to come take that position at what we can pay it.
So that's part of our skilled trades. And again, so we really have 5 effective people in that department. One of them's a supervisor working on our building maintenance. And so we're way below on that. Vehicle maintenance, very similar. Based on the way you break down the complexity of the vehicles, you put into maintenance repair units. So, a sedan is a 1 maintenance repair unit, but a sweeper is 8. It's a lot more complicated, a lot more maintenance needed. So you look at the composition of our fleet, we should have 6.5 full-time mechanics. We have 2. So again, it's a major issue. When police come in, we usually drop most things because the police need to get back out there. So it really puts a hindrance on keeping our fleet operational. The operational audit from 2014, 17, identified highway as the second lowest staffed in the audit and identified DPW as the lowest staffed. And then looking at our core communities now, we're 10th out of 14 per capita, 5th out of 6 for our neighboring, and 6th out of 9th for our core communities. And very similar to police, and fire. If you put us to the average per capita, we'd need $782,000 in our budget just to be average. So we are definitely on the low end. I have a shot on overtime. Ours is a little different. We don't have to staff 365, but you can see we do spend a significant amount of money on overtime. A lot of that is building related. These are 911s that really have to, no heat, plumbing leaks, things like that have to be done. Most of our work that we do in the schools can't be done during class time, so it's usually an overtime thing. So our overtime's been steady, but it's not the biggest issue we have. And then on infrastructure itself, to maintain our roads, we use Chapter 90 as our main funding source now. For several years, we were able to fund $500,000 in local capital, and that really helped because that pushed us over. At the time, this is going back a few years ago, we were spending, $1.3 million on roads. Right now, we should be spending probably $1.5 to $1.8 million on roads per year, and we're only looking at state level funding Chapter 90. So we're way below on our spending level. So what that's going to do is our level of service for our roads will go down. There's no question about it. We're doing our best to maintain, and we use preventative maintenance techniques. We use all the latest things to try to keep our roads in good shape. But again, it's just there's a funding gap there. On the building side, it's recommended to spend about 2% of the replacement value of your building on maintenance, preventative maintenance, and capital repairs. So for the town side, that would be $720,000 a year. We're nowhere near that. We generally come in, we've been able to fund $200,000 a year here and there, but not consistently. And on the fleet, like we talked about before, our fleet age ideally should be 12 years old based on the composition of our fleet. A heavy dump truck can last 15 years, where a light truck would be 7 or 9 or 12, depending on how heavy duty it was. So you look at that, our ideal age should be 12 years. We're at 17, and that's including the water vehicles. When you break out the DPW general fund side, our age is more like 20 years, where the water is at 12. So that's where you can see really the maintenance costs to maintain those vehicles are significantly different because water is at their ideal age, where DPW is well behind it. Some of the infrastructure concerns we have, we have 117 miles of road, sidewalk, we have 170 miles of water main, 197 culverts. There is, other than the water main replacement, which we are doing $1.5 million a year in replacement on that, but that is, again, enterprise funds, so we have that ability. That probably needs to go up significantly as well in the future. We really have no mechanism other than our Chapter 90, which covers our roads and sidewalks. In our roads, we have a $22 million backlog right now. That doesn't include sidewalks. And every time we touch a road, we have to fix and repair curb ramps, things like that, per ADA guidelines. So we really don't have the money we should be spending, and we have, for the other things, we have no source of revenue or budget to address these. All these things have a finite life. They all have a useful service life, and almost all those culverts, drain lines, drainage structures are well past their useful life. So this is a concern. We do repairs as much as we can. We basically have a failed catch basin. Someone calls, there's a hole in the road, we go out, catch basin collapse, we'll rebuild it. But there's no comprehensive or systematic way for us to fund replacing those assets. And that's just going to get worse as we go forward. So as an example, we had a sinkhole open up on Bay Road while we were plowing last year. Basically, our fully loaded sander went down the road, looked in the mirror and saw a giant hole behind him. Luckily, the truck didn't fall in it. We shut the road down, did a temporary repair, came back out, inspected the whole drain line and that section of pipe. Basically, it's corrugated metal pipe and it's completely gone. So the only thing holding it up were the ribs. You can see dirt between all the ribs of the corrugated metal pipe. So that was quite alarming. That was 1,200 linear feet that we're actually finishing up the repair now. We're doing that now. We've been doing that for the last 3 weeks. Just the materials alone are $125 a linear foot. That is with our maintenance, our own personnel doing the work. So we have about 125,000 linear feet of drain line, corrugated metal drain line in town, and that's no longer used. It's pretty old fashioned, and it's all probably in the same condition. Just the material cost alone to replace that is $15.6 million. So that's just an example of some of the concerns I have. Like we just we run tight, but we're not even addressing some of these infrastructure issues we have. And another example is our tree backlog. So we do a lot of tree work every year, but we normally run with about 100 trees on the list that need removal. So people call in, there's a town tree in front of my house and it's dropping limbs. We'll put it on the list, but it takes a really long time for us to get there. We just don't have this dedicated staff. We have 5 grounds and forestry employees. That covers all the maintenance of all the grounds. And right now, they're all out mowing and blowing leaves. When we have Memorial Day, we're working in cemeteries. Like, you can't get out and do tree work. And then if you have a graduation setup or a voting setup, those same employees are doing those things. So we really don't have a dedicated staff that's able, because to do tree work, you need a minimum of 3. 4 would be great, but then you're completely losing during the growing season. You can't do that. So it's very hard to navigate. So that, again, it's just one of the concerns we have. And this is just one aspect. We run lean in pretty much any job or any type of task we do. Unfunded mandates, there's a lot of unfunded mandates. One of the new ones is line striping, retroreflectivity. So that's going to be coming because of autonomous vehicles. There's going to be requirements for us to do better quality line striping in the future. And it's going to be contingent on federal funding. If we don't do it, we'll risk losing federal funding. So that's a concern because right now we use, for the most part, our roads are just chlorinated rubber. It's just standard paint. That's about 8 cents a linear foot. But going to something like thermoplastic or epoxy, we're gonna times that by 10. So it's a lot. So there's a potential for these unfunded mandates, no matter what it is, to really impact our budget and our bottom line. So I don't want to be doom and gloom. We have a great staff. We do a lot of work. But I just wanted to let you know where our budget stood, especially related to the general fund and where we operate and some of the concerns that we have going forward. And that's all I have at this time. So.